Oh, it's on. Well, it looks like we did really good with the elections. On my dry hair a little bit. So we're be happy that finally, I think we might have our finger on what was going on in the election, and I think that Japan did a really good job at keeping like Trump busy. You know what I mean? Keeping him entertained. What I didn't understand is like why he didn't want fish with with the head on. Let me just get this hair out of my way. It's so dry. I need to oil it a lot more. There. I don't have any hair on my chinny chin chin, but I'll get the back later. So, but I'm very excited. I'm very excited about the whole ordeal because if we could fix it so we don't ever have elections like we had in November 2016, to where it looks like we had. Oh, my feet are probably dirty. A little bit too much oil on my hands. Where we had some collusion. Well, it's neither here nor there. We'll find out more with Flint, and they're talking a lot about Flint. Now, Flint has truly had had a lot of contact with Russia, and so has Trump. A lot of contact. So has Trump kids. So and well, it sort of reminds me of a story like I was like told that sort of reminds me of the behavior of um I want to say the way the Republicans, neo Nazis, white supremacists act. And the moral of the story is that they didn't pass on the information to their children. They didn't pass on the truth to their children. It, because like you got to understand the way the story starts is that Caucasian, white, European, French, I guess it was the French, the Spaniards, and the British, uh, but very intensely want to follow uh, the money. The money that was made, like when you see the pyramids in Egypt, in my public schools, and I went to two different states. So actually, and they did not tell us all the. We did not study South America. We studied European, so we didn't study about the pyramids in Mexico. Well, the way this, so like so when you hear these stories as a kid, but you're not getting this same history um, in the books at school that you're getting uh, verbally. Or yeah, anyway, oral history but anyway, so they were saying that they were saying that okay, that certain people that was the Egyptian people, um, they the ones that was running the country was it's like scientists and physics, and um, which um, uh, as soon as the Europeans at that time, the British, the Spanish, and the French learned that it wasn't like abracadabra, it wasn't magic. Um, that that they could have lights. Uh, without using oil or kerosene or and smoke. Anyway, that they were able to move mechanical gears and stuff like this. Well, anyway, because this was all like witchcraft. Even the way they did their medicine. You know, the Europeans was cutting people, putting leeches, or just draining them of blood, doing stuff that caused more infection, death, and which reminds me, um, the second person that was my ride to go to the grocery store, and it died. So yeah, he was 82 in poor health. But anyway, but that's besides the point. Um, so getting back to the point. So well, let me just get to the story part. So the way it is everybody heard about Moses leaving. Well, and you hear about the water, the parting of the water. The parting of the water had to do with them having ideas about combustive engines, and like using like steam, and because they could move gears. They had a good idea of weights and pulleys, and how things function, uh, uh, because of the way they study science and nature. That 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 they knew how. Anyway, so that they they made most of their money from food from fish. They weren't so much red meat eaters, even though they did eat some, but they weren't a big red meat eater. Um, so anyway, so the story goes is that the the British, the Spaniards, and the French were still following uh, and looking for uh, where they went because they want their knowledge. They want to know how to own the air, the water, with their technology. How and so that is why they came to America, and um, and so when they got to America, and they're still looking, they're looking for the gold that they had. The one problem that they had is that they were coming in from the Atlantic Ocean part, but coming in from the Pacific part was a lot of Asians, backgrounds, in places now that would be China, Japan, um, Korea and whatnot, what you have not there, and they had mixed with with the people that they found there, and which was very disturbing to the French, Spaniards, and German. Not because of the Chinese wanted to come and colonize. I don't think they was really in that mindset. Um, uh, to where they wanted to, like rule the world and take over everything. That was strictly a European, white, um, Caucasian thing. Um, they were more into knowledge and wanting to learn, and they were coming out of a coke epidemic that had gripped their country, like in China or something, as the story goes. I don't know. Everybody thinks coke just started and opiates just started, like whenever people think they started, but it's nothing new in the world. Anyway, so as the saying goes, when they found out that the white people had found us, they found the city of lights, and like nowadays they changed the city of lights to they had all the houses painted. No, they had lights, and then like if you ever look at the old western things where they climb up the poles and they're cutting down the telegraph wires. Well, this it's just like we have, telephone pole wires now. That was what they used for communication. So they're like, so they had everything that we had today, but it was only uh, the learned few that did really. It had to do with how they was raised. There was the more elite. They they ended up because of them passing their knowledge down to their kids, starting their kids, education. So very young and really like they didn't believe in hurting their kids, um, like whooping or everything was like because they were so like they saw them as new to the world. So, anyways, the story goes that there was a family that had been trying to go out of Earth atmosphere, like traveling in space. And I think like the first couple of tries re-entry burn. It's like, and they would burn up, which like when the white man, they're like white man, they couldn't understand how like with the story how well they're re-entering, haha, they're stupid how they burn up. They must have flew to the sun. But anyway, so the way the story goes is that they finally got the math done to where they could travel to it's not like the speed of light, uh, 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 but it had to do with with time. Oh, wow, it's in all those famous science fiction movies, but it had to do uh, with the math of uh, of time. Um, anyway, they so the story goes is that they went to a sister planet. That they made it, and but the way time and space can't think of that word. The way time and space and uh, traveling is a certain type of, I hate to say it, um sort of a way, but anyway, it 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 doesn't take them like like to go to Mars. It wouldn't take them like 8 or 12 months, whatever it is. It would take like 8 to 12 seconds. Except for like they couldn't come back to Earth because it wouldn't be 8 or 12 seconds. I think I had, well, it's a really messy page, but so you can't really see it. It has to do with waves and but anyway, so that was so then there's so now the white man is trying to still follow them, still find them, but the only thing is that um they didn't continue with the history. They didn't they didn't even tell their kids. Instead, what they've been doing is instead of they're destroying everything instead of maintaining and keeping it up. But they didn't continue on with the history of the plight out of Africa. They didn't teach that history not only to their own children, but instead when they try to destroy the black man's history, um, like how horrible would it be like especially like in the 16th century or something, for these European Caucasian people to think that they were really worshiping an African black person, you know, an African black female, because the female was considered um, in this tribe of learned people very important because of the birthing the children. Matter of fact, females actually was wearing pants, and men sort of wore dresses because the females had that their monthly. So it was, and they would use cotton and whatnot to absorb, you know, um, and and the men were sort of loose. They uh uh I mean, they didn't want their scrollum restricted, so it was a different type of thinking. Um, they you know, cause like they were very I forgot this whole story. They were very conscious of their image in a sense, and they said that was sort of their downfall. That 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 but their image, they didn't want, oh, I'm glorified and I'm better than you, and I'm and our people are perfect type image. Their image was like more of a learned, hardworking, um uh uh to where your kids, like by 9 years old, was a big help with bringing it because they have learned, like, enough with the math and the science and the reading and the writing, and they could, science is, you had not only when you looked at it, you drew it, what you observed, you wrote down, what his action, his function, the who, what, where, why, and how of the situation, so, and that so that by the time they're 9 years old, they're able to, do input and be part of the structures. Maybe, they're still learning, but they're able to have a new insight, bright eyes or new eyes, or in a situation. So the children were prized very highly. Um, um, the kids ate the good food. Uh, uh, they ate first. Um, you know, um, it, so now we have a situation where we have a polluted planet. We have different countries trying to go out of space. The only thing is that um, uh, you couldn't, they couldn't, their way of going out of space, they didn't do the math right. You just can't survive. You have to be able to, well, I don't know if it, um, like, well, I don't know if it really something I want to show, but you have to be able to understand the curvature of of the universe. Um, it's sort of like understanding, like, the ripples in a pond, and how they go along with the bigger picture, and how uh like, if the ripples are going out and you're in the middle of the ripple, you could be in the middle of like a typhoon, you know, and that typhoon, becomes a giant wave that could help jump over, you know. So anyway, it doesn't make sense. But supposedly this is the story that there is another planet where it had water, and so if you have water like H2O, you have oxygen. Yep, that gives you everything that you need. Uh, Beginnings to make that planet feasible, but they didn't do the math right. The way they're going, basically, they tore a hole in the ozone. Bad thing, very bad thing. There's another theory about putting the hole in my theory that they're putting a hole in the ozone, um, and the gas escapes, that we could be just knocked off our rotation just a little bit, our orbit. But anyway, so I'm just happy that the Democrats came out and won, and I'm gonna go do my hair. It's so dry. All the middle and the back, and then curl it. All right. So anyway, this so like I this the story is that we didn't pass on our troops. They passed on some lies, and we have a sick planet. And I think it's very obvious with the way the Republicans, and especially Trump and his people are. They they can't do no good from all the evil they're doing. You know, I think it's a very evil thing that Trump did to be a con artist, to launder money for Russia, supposedly. You know, um, for uh, 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 being a pervert, um, for um, for their inhumane way of dealing with American people, and unable to empathize or either comprehend why they should empathize. Everything's a big joke and everybody's stupider than them. And I think that Flint, they were talking about, oh well, they're gonna make him turn because of his son. Um, if he really cared about his son, he wouldn't have put his son in that situation in the first place. He's a very selfish man. So, you know, I, I don't think they have loyalty to anybody. That's what I think. Oh, let me get off. It's too long. But anyway, the moral to the story is that we weren't taught in school the history. About South America. Very, very little. Very, very little. uh, we haven't been really taught the history of black people. The only thing black people think is that they were slaves. Um, uh, um, and that's just such a hurtful thing. Well, in the 70s, Russian women that were coming over, and men that were coming over basically as Indian slaves, because they had to pay back like 20,000 for each person or whatever it was, or they had to work it off. And believe me, Russia came over here not to do any good. And it, it, let me go. Good night.